Welcome to our new series, which focuses on going more in-depth into the origins of heroes and villains. This week, we're going to heavily focus on explaining the origins of all of these head lanterns, so you can prepare for some good old-fashioned lantern stories. It's time to discuss the first blue lantern. Now, the blue lanterns are hope, and they're filled to the brim with this hope. So what this means is, St. Walker needed to show an insane amount of hope to be deemed worthy of the first ring. His planet was doomed. The sun was going to go supernova and the entire planet was doomed to extinction. But St. Walker's family, they were very religious. They would read the scriptures daily and they prayed to the Messiah to save them. But no aid came. The planet became filled with doubters and haters of the Word of God. And Walker looked through the scriptures day and night, tirelessly, looking for the reason as to why the Messiah never came, till he eventually found the answer. The scriptures read that God looked down on the planet from a mountain on high, and that the trusted believer needed to climb the mountain Helios, and at the top, he would find the Messiah. Walker's father told him that no one ever survived that trip, but Walker told him not to worry as God would be with them for this journey, and they will save the planet. His father took his hand, and he simply said, "I have faith in you, son." So Walker took his entire family, and they began the trek up Mount Helios. As they climbed higher, it grew hotter and hotter as the sun was getting closer to going supernova. But Walker had faith. Things were happening for a reason, and as they climbed, things began to test Walker's faith in his God. As they crossed the first of many bridges, his father fell through the center, and he fell to his death, perishing on the rocky terrain down below. He buried his father that day, and he said a prayer, and then he continued his trek with his wife, his daughter, and his son. 2 more days passed and everyone began to grow thirsty, so they stopped at a nearby river to get a drink. But as the sun grew hotter, it also melted the ice at the top of Mount Helios, and the melted ice turned the river into a rapid which swept away Walker's wife and daughter. Now, with 3 of his family members dead to the trek, Walker refused to give up hope, and he refused to give up on his faith, and he insisted that the Messiah was at the top of Mount Helios. He would get there. He would save the planet. So, his son and him continued their trek, and for days they climbed with no food. They grew hungrier and weaker with each passing day, until the son finally found some berries, and he thanked God for providing these berries. But those berries, they weren't edible. And before Walker could stop him, his son ate the poisonous berries. The fever lasted for 3 hours, and as his son parted with this world, he told his father that he would see him in the next life. Walker buried his son that day, and he continued the trek. And he cried until he had no more tears to shed, and he cried until he could just feel nothing else. And as he climbed higher and higher, and the heat grew worse and worse, Walker knew that there was no going back. He wouldn't have the strength to return after he found the Messiah. But the hope that he could save the planet allowed him to persist. And as he reached the top of the mountain, he discovered nothing there. Nothing more than a monument. He screamed to the heavens for the Messiah to show himself as he tore pages out of the Word of God. And his God responded to him and provided rain which reinvigorated him. And as Walker took in that rain, he saw what the monument was. The monument provided a reflection. And Walker knew that day that he was Saint Walker, the Messiah of his people. He climbed back down the mountain and he spread the word further than he's ever spread it before, to everyone, and they all eventually listened. And he told them all that if they had hope, if they put their faith in their God, that they could be saved, and that he was the Messiah sent by their God to tell them this message. So the whole planet began to pray, and the whole planet became filled with hope, and their hope grew so great that eventually the sun began to shrink, and it began to heal itself with a blue light. And a ring flew from the sun that day and simply said, "All will be well." It sought out the deliverer of hope, and it said, "Brody Walker of Estonia, you have the ability to instill great hope." And St. Walker, the Blue Lantern, was born that day as the ring allowed him to see his fallen family one last time. And they all told him, "All will be well." If you learned something new, give this video a like. We really do appreciate it. And I'll see you guys next time right here at Comicstorian.